You know that feeling, right? When you want something you just can't have? Well, today we're going to dive into that very feeling with the story of a clever fox. We'll pick up 10 new English words and a really famous expression you can start using right away. So let's jump in. So let me start by asking you this. Think about it for a second. Maybe it was a new phone you wanted or a job you didn't get. Did your opinion on it suddenly turn negative the moment you knew it was out of reach? It's a weird feeling, but it's totally human, and it's right at the heart of our story today. And that gets to the core idea we're exploring. You know, it's kind of like a defense mechanism, a way we protect ourselves when we're disappointed. And there's a classic little story that shows this perfectly. So yeah, let's get right into the story of the fox. It's a timeless fable, and it brings this whole idea to life in a really simple way. Okay. So our story starts with a hungry fox. He's out for a walk, and suddenly he spots the perfect treat. This beautiful bunch of juicy-looking grapes, just hanging high up on a vine. Man, they look delicious. So of course, he's gotta try and get them. He jumps, and he jumps again, stretching as high as he possibly can. But it's just no use. The grapes are way too high, totally out of his reach. And here it is, the big moment. He's defeated, and he gives up. But does he walk away thinking, oh man, I couldn't do it? Nope. Instead, he just scoffs and says to himself, those grapes are probably sour anyway. He criticizes the very thing he wanted a minute ago just because he couldn't have it. So, that simple story is built on some really great vocabulary. Let's take a second and break down 10 of the key words from the tale. First up, our main character, the fox, which, as you know, is a clever wild animal. And what was the prize he was after? Grapes. That sweet, round fruit. Now, the whole reason the grapes were so hard to get was because they were hanging from the vine, suspended in the air. To even try to get them, the fox had to jump, push himself up into the air. And the whole goal of that jump was to reach the grapes, to finally touch or get to them. But of course, he didn't succeed. In the end, his attempt was a fail. So after he failed, he just decided to turn and walk away. But as he was leaving, he had to say something, right, to make himself feel a little better about it. And listen to the word he picks, sour. He calls the grapes acidic, unpleasant, the total opposite of sweet. And the funny thing is, he never even tasted them. And our final word really just sums it all up. To criticize means to find fault with something. And that's exactly what the fox did. He criticized the grapes only because he couldn't get them. Okay, so this brings us to the big takeaway. This story gives us a super common English expression we use all the time, sour grapes. Let's look at how you can actually use it. So, the whole idea is this. When you see someone complaining about something or putting it down, and you suspect it's just because they can't have it, you can say they have a case of sour grapes. Here's a perfect real-life example. Imagine a kid sees a really expensive toy in a store. When they find out they can't have it, they might say, that toy looks boring anyway. That, right there, is a classic case of sour grapes. They're just criticizing the toy because they can't afford it. All right, so you've heard the story, you've learned the expression. Now it's your turn to do a little practice and reflection. Here are those 10 new words one last time. Why don't you pause here for a second and just see how many you can define for memory. And now for a little challenge. If you really want to lock these words in, try writing 2 sentences using a few of the words from today's list. Seriously, it's the best way to make them stick. And I'll leave you with one last thing to think about. Be honest with yourself. What are your sour grapes? Thinking about it is a pretty powerful way to understand yourself just a little bit better. Thanks for hanging out with me today, and I'll catch you on the next one.